Hello everyone, Mercurial Girl here, and today we are going to talk about air signs. I'm going to go over air signs as a whole, what the element air in your birth chart is actually like doing for you. And you want to look in your personal birth chart for those placements that are in Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra are air signs. If you are lacking air in your chart, that does not mean you don't need this video, because when we lack an element in our birth chart, it's really important to kind of understand and know what we lack, because you're going to need some of that from the external world. It's not going to inherently come to you as naturally. So we're going to go over all of that. So to first zoom out as to air signs as a whole, air is our communication, our perspective, and our intellect, our higher learning. Air is the element of the wind. It's above us. It's seeing from a higher vantage and viewpoint. And I think because air is kind of a little bit more detached from their emotions, they get this perspective of not caring, when in reality, they care so much. It's just done in their own way. So we care by looking into things, I feel like, so much deeper than a lot of other signs do. Scorpio could be a potential challenge on that. But we love to learn and figure things out. So we are constantly delving into something. And I think by the time some of the more emotional signs are over something, we are still on such a deep journey to figure it out. And we are the most forgiving of the zodiac because we have endless perspective and we're always trying to understand. We do not see emotional things that are happening from like an emotional charge as being inherently accurate. So I think we can kind of extend a lot of grace to people and not take things so personally, because we have that higher minded perspective. And yet, because we are more detached, people think we are not inherently caring as much. But air signs, I see you, and I know, as someone with so much air in their birth chart, I get misunderstood as being cold and detached all too often. And I think we can also get the viewpoint of arrogance, which I think is important to note, that we can get a little overly attached in the way we think. So we always have to be working on that, fellow air signs. But what we can offer you is the gift of perspective. We can help exchange ideas with you. We can exchange thoughts. We might not be sitting there crying with you, but we really are understanding, and we are going to help and give advice in the way that we deeply know how to do. I think for all of us air placements, we have to watch our ego. We can get that kind of self-centered and self-directed focus if we are not careful. So remembering to zoom out, remembering how to always let go of our own personal opinions. Since we're endlessly taking in the opinions of other people, we have to also know that we can't get so attached to the way we're thinking and continue to ebb and shift and flow like the wind. When air signs are hanging out together, it is so intellectually stimulating. We love to be able to talk things out endlessly and exchange. It feels so much like it's stuck in our head all the time that when we get to actually have a verbal banter, it feels so freaking good. And I know we get the reputation of being, especially Gemini, overly kind of chatty and flaky, but really we just need a lot of intellectual stimulation to stay plugged in and present. And so when air signs are together, it's like a massage for the brain. I love it. If you are lacking air in your chart, it can be really hard to get perspective out and understand perspective. It can be hard to get your words out. It can be harder to communicate. And air as a whole is kind of a more social geared element, and it can feel really lonely when you lack air in your chart, because air is always looking for the higher good of people, the higher perspective of others. When you lack that, it can be a bit of a challenge. And I think versus learning through intellect, a lot of other elements learn through experience, which that's something for my air signs to keep in mind. I think we can get so frustrated when we share our fun facts, why it doesn't like change someone's entire world. Not every element learns by learning something. Some of the elements have to learn through trial and error, through experience. And just because we're zipping through fun facts all day long and constantly reevaluating doesn't mean the other signs are going at that pace. And I think we need to take from them and understand that it's not always supposed to be one way. But I understand the frustration, guys. I get it. I'm with you. I'm here. So let's go over each sign as a whole just briefly. So we'll start with my Aquarius people. I love you guys. So many insightful thoughts come from Aquarius people. When you sit and listen, they have this ability to give you this detached and unemotionally charged viewpoint, which can help gain so much perspective. I think Aquarius is a little bit more stubborn than fellow air signs, Gemini and Libra, because its modality is a fixed sign. So there is a little bit more rigidness around Aquarius and the way they think. I think it takes them more time to change their opinion. They can actually latch onto opinions so strong that even if it's not working, they're endlessly trying to find a perspective for how it can. And that can get a little bit troublesome. You have to make sure you know how to let go of things when they are no longer working, my Aquarius people. But I understand the endless search for a perspective that makes things work, but in balance, right? Aquarius is traditionally ruled by Uranus, which is the planet of freedom and individuality. And Aquariuses love to be seen as kind of quirky and different. If they feel like they're too much like everybody else, that would be like something that extremely provokes them. They want to be seen as unconventional. So don't point out how they're just like everybody else. That would be like a stab to the heart. They do not want to hear that, And I love their freedom-seeking abilities. Aquarius also in air, as an air sign, is looking at the collective a little bit more than Gemini and Libra. It knows how to zoom out and see where society is going as a whole. It's a little less personable. I think Aquarius can spend quite a bit more time alone than Gemini and Libra, but they're always looking for humanity's highest good, and they really seek that out in the way that they learn and the way that they communicate, so that they can give you the freedom to be your own individual self, the freedom for them to be their own individual selves, and how to make society reflect that a little bit more. Now, going into Gemini, I'll try not to rant too much because I have a lot of Gemini in my birth chart, as I have said before. But Gemini gets the reputation of being flaky and all over the place. I think people are always finding Gemini to be interesting because we always have something to say. Almost too much. Sometimes we don't need to say every single thought that comes to mind. I think we have a lot of fun thoughts, but I know Gemini can get a little bit too chatty and not give space for other people, so we have to watch that. But I think the flakiness of perception comes so much more that Gemini is rapidly evolving all the time. I think every single social interaction is always giving perspective for a different way to think. We are so curious by how our fellow humans work that we are in constant learning mode, and therefore we change all the time. We are the modality known as mutable, which is the shapeshifters. We are here to create change. We are changing internally constantly, and we reflect that outward in the way that we are sharing thoughts, sharing perspectives. The second we learn something new, we want to teach and share it out because we feel like knowledge and sharing that knowledge is going to help things move along, and where change can come a lot more rapidly if we all just hear these outside perspectives and opinions. I think Gemini at times can be seen also a little bit detached and a little bit like superficial, but there is so much going on under the surface that I think it's just hard to like sit down and fully listen to what Gemini is saying because it's coming off so fast, so jumpy. I like literally physically move so much when I'm talking. But I think if you sit and actually have a listening ear to Gemini, you will find like a lot of wisdom behind what they think, because like my fellow air signs, we are always trying to learn. And what we are saying is not just being said to say it. It's coming from a lot of different perspectives that we have sifted through to think the way we think. Finally, let's talk about Libra. I feel like Libra is a lot more compromising compared to Aquarius and Gemini, because Libra cannot stand conflict and wants to keep the peace. In the moment, they will say the things that they feel like they need to say to help you kind of reflect yourself, help give you perspective, but also they can lose their own opinion within that in the moment. It's not that it's not thought of later. I feel like Libra just always knows what to say to magnetize and bring people to them. They're a little bit more directed to interpersonal connection compared to Gemini and Aquarius, that I feel like Aquarius is totally cool being a little bit more loner. Gemini jumps from people to people so many times that we can seem a little less like we'll slow down enough, a little more free-spirited vibe, versus Libra will hang a little bit longer, I think, than fellow air signs. But I think the biggest shadow side of Libra is being ruled by Venus makes you so vibey, so aesthetic. But I think Libra can get so caught up in what is socially in, and they follow like the vibe trends so much that they can be a little bit self-centered in what they feel like is a more open-minded perspective. I don't think it's always zooming out nearly as much. They're going with, okay, well, this is clearly in and this is clearly not. But Gemini and Aquarius are like, but why is that in? Why is that cool? You know, like we're up like a couple layers higher in our wind. But I think Libra is so good at listening, a lot more, I feel like, especially than Gemini. Aquarius can listen pretty good, but Gemini goes a little quicker, our little mutable shapeshifter. But Libra will listen. It's hearing your perspective. It's playing devil's advocate. It's sharing for you what they are hearing and then helping kind of voice it back. I feel like you can really know where your perspective actually is after talking to a Libra. I learned so much from my conversations with strong Libra placements. And Libra is a cardinal sign. So they have their modality is cardinal, which means that they can initiate a lot more. They love to start new things, but the follow through can be a little bit less. So they are here to like get something going. So with that, they need other people's perspectives, and I think a lot of other people around them to actually keep the energy for something. They can get a little caught up in just that exciting starting energy. So thank you all for listening to a few hot takes on our air signs. If you want to know what you have in your personal birth chart, go to sensefulwellness.com for a personal birth chart reading, and I will see you guys next week on Mercurial Girl.